of His love. Now, love brings about change. Why do I say that? Well, what's that scripture that we all know? John chapter 3:16. For God so loved the world that He gave. What was the outcome of that love? Well, the giving of His Son, which brought about a new reality for those who received Him. A salvation experience, a kingdom reality in their life. And in the same way, what He's telling us in this passage is that through what He's called us, He's positioning us that we might remain in His love, and through being recipients of His love, what are we going to have? He says we're going to have fruit. We're going to remain in fruit. That is, doing it. In order that, still in verse 16, in order that whatever you shall ask the Father in my name, He will give to you. Now here's the second time that He's made this promise. And once again, if someone didn't understand it properly the first time, He's going to give it a second time in a different context, but with the same message. And what is that? Well, remember, two things we've talked about. God positioning us in the right location. Where is that? So that we can be recipients of that love. And that love is going to cause us to live a fruitful life, an obedient life according to the purposes, the plans, the commandments of God. And He says, if that's your situation, He says, I'm going to bring it about, look at the last half of verse 16, in order that whatever you shall ask the Father in my name. So, is this whatever? Well, yes. For someone who's remaining in the love of God and who is doing good deeds. That person is going to have an authority. That person is going to have a position of preference before God, whatever they ask. Now, the context is the same. Notice what He says, just does it differently. That whatever you shall ask in my name. Now, why does that phrase there, why is that sentence attached? I mean, it would mean something totally different if it simply said, whatever you ask, I will give it. Well, here He's trying to teach us the principle, and that is this. It's whatever we ask in the name of Messiah. What's name? Name is synonymous with character. So we have to be asking that while we're in the character of Messiah. Now, do you ever recall Messiah going to His Heavenly Father one of those nights when He spent all evening, all through the night into the morning, praying on His face before His Father? What did He pray for? Financial prosperity, for a great way to travel, the most comfortable way to travel, abundance of resources of this world? No. His prayers was always for God's will to be realized in the persons, in people's life. That they might understand what is truth, so that they could live out truth and be those who bring honor and praise to the Father. So it goes without saying, when we look at this passage, when it says, you can ask anything in my name and He will give it. It goes along with, you have to ask that in that same character of Messiah, for His same purposes, for His same plans. So He says, look now at verse 17, these things I have commanded you. Now, we don't go very far, do we, until we come back to this idea of commanding. And commanding has to do with submissiveness. And this helps us understand what He really is saying here. That yes, we have an authority in our prayer life. But that authority is founded upon us understanding the commandments of God. And that's why He says, look at verse 17, these things I have commanded you in order that you love one another. So what should I be praying for? I should be praying that the love of God is manifested in me and through me to others, that others might experience that love as I did through the works, the fruit that I am producing. And when I pray to God, God, help me produce this fruit. It doesn't matter what it is. Help me do this deed. It doesn't matter what it is. God is going to say yes. And He is going to supply what I need for that to become a reality. So, verse 17. These things I have commanded you in order that you love one another. For the world does what? The world hates you. And it says here, if the world hates you, know that first it hated me before you. So he's talking here about something. He's going to be moving into a discussion of how there's a great dichotomy between the kingdom people and the people of the world. And when we look at this passage, he's going to be speaking here over and over concerning this division. So he says, when you are walking in love, now that's a nice term. We would think, oh, a loving person, everyone likes a person who lives out love, who obeys God's commandments. That is going to be the exact opposite. And Messiah is preparing us for the future. Now, if you know the context here, we're coming towards the conclusion of chapter 15. He's making this discourse in chapters 15, 16, and 17 because in 18, he's going to be arrested. This is shortly before Messiah is arrested. He is tried, he is crucified, he dies, he rises, and 40 days after the resurrection, he ascends. So we're coming very close to the end of his earthly ministry. And therefore, he wants to prepare the people for the end. Without him, so he's teaching important truth. And we'll continue on next week in this study as we help prepare one another for the last days.